Guild Wars 2's 4th expansion, Secrets of the Obscure, recently released, and today I want to go over my 10 favorite things from the first map of the expansion, Skywatch Archipelago. This is a super cool map where the wizards in the Wizards Court have created fractals of Tyria to test alternate realities, like what if Balthazar had won in Path of Fire, or what if the Jade mechs rose up against the Canthons, and many more cool places. So let's go over my favorite parts of the map so far. Coming in at number 10, I have the Cloudview Lake Waterfalls. One of the fractals in this new map is a version of Maguma where leyline energy basically went wild, and now nature has taken over the world without the interference of civilization. Where the entire area around here is beautiful and features a few large lakes with bridges and other exalted structures dotted throughout. But my favorite part of this area is Cloudview Lake, which is the southeasternmost lake in this region of the map. You have water coming in from further north into Maguma, where if you follow along the river area here, you can find some crashed packed airships and see some pretty cool waterfalls pouring off of the edge of the island. But if you come back to the main lake, you see another gorgeous waterfall pouring into the western side of the lake. But then my favorite part is the 4 different waterfalls pouring out of the lake and off of the floating islands. I just love how they look, and I think it is a great touch to a map like this. In the number 9 spot, I have the starting area of this map, which is the Beacon of Ages and the Wizard's Ascent, where when you start the expansion, this is the first area you explore of this new map, where you're helping the Astral Ward and the Wizard's Court fight back against some of the Cryptus, and this entire area is pretty cool. You get to look off to the rest of the map and see what lies ahead of you, but then you can turn around and admire this area itself, where at the center of this place is the Wizard's Folly Tower, which we originally saw in the original Guild Wars, located in the Wizard's Folly in Ascalon, before the Searing. And I just love seeing this here in Guild Wars 2, and also learning about what that tower really was. But the rest of this place is also cool. It's a large Astral Ward stronghold that has a ton of details. You got soldiers grouped up, different mages talking, a bunch of different libraries, a command center, a dining hall, a kitchen, an infirmary, sleeping quarters, and a lot more. There are just a ton of details all around this area, and I love how many there are. It makes this place feel like a stronghold and kind of like a city where all these soldiers are stationed and kind of just live together while also fighting for Tyria. Coming in at number 8 is another thing in the Wizard's Ascent, but I wanted to highlight it by itself, and it is the Skyscale Target Practice Adventure, where this is a pretty fun adventure that you can start just west of the Beacon of Ages waypoint, next to the person that you work with for the Skyscale achievements introduced in this expansion, where this adventure basically serves as a bit of a tutorial for how to use your Skyscale, including the new fireball mechanic introduced with this expansion, where there are 2 objectives you are going for while you do this adventure. The first is a typical race-like adventure where you have to go through all the checkpoints in order until you get to the end, but while you do this, you also have to use your new fireball skill in order to shoot the targets as you go through here, where I found this super fun. I know some people don't really like the new fireball skill, but I like it a lot, and navigating around this area on my Skyscale while also shooting the targets here was a ton of fun for me. In the number 7 spot, I have the Abandoned Lab underneath Devastated Garenhof, where Devastated Garenhof is one of the fractals in the new map that shows what would have happened if the Wizard's Tower was destroyed, which would lead to the destruction of Garenhof, where the town is pretty messed up and you have all the civilians around here trying to escape the destruction. One of the biggest parts about the Garenhof we know and love in Keswick's Hills is the hidden arcane eye base located in the mountains next to the city, and in this map it is here as well. You can't really access the base by normal means in the original map, but in this one you can walk into it and start walking around. Well, it is pretty destroyed, so you can only explore part of it, and it is definitely precarious, where you can find the building that the lab is normally connected to and go through the normally locked door leading you to the basement, where you can jump around the ruins of the lab here. You can find some members of the Arcane Eye down here, some alive and some dead, and then it's just a super cool area. I was speculating that the Arcane Eye might play a part in this expansion, but they did not, but it is nice to see them referenced here in this part of the map. In the number 6 slot is one of the entire fractals in the map, and it is the Jade Mech Habitation Zone 3. This fractal is showing what would happen to Kaining if the Jade Mechs decided to rise up against their Canthon creators and basically take control of the city. This follows the themes of general robot uprisings you see in other pieces of media, but it's here in Guild Wars 2, and I just love the entire vibe and theme of this area. Playing through a robot uprising storyline is awesome because it's not something we have really seen on a large scale in Guild Wars 2. But the city of Kaining that we see here is absolutely incredible. I thought the Kaining we saw in the End of Dragons expansion was pretty cool, but I wish there were more areas in that map that look like this place, and the atmosphere around here is so gritty and apocalyptic. It definitely feels like a hostile environment where the robots are hunting down humanity. The outskirts with the Kestrel Resistance Camp and also the Naga Village are also cool and a nice touch to this area. Coming in at number 5 are the storm clouds you can find around the map. This is kind of a random one on this list, but I just really like how they look around the floating islands here. I could be forgetting about something, but I think these clouds are a brand new model or texture or effect or whatever introduced in this expansion, where we see some stuff similar to this around the game, but these are definitely super cool. They are super dark and stormy, and there's just a ton of lightning in them, and it adds a lot to the atmosphere around this map. I think the storms are partially connected to the fact that there are fractals, where we see the instability of each of these regions around the map. In Garenhof, I think you got the whole storyline with the Wizard's Tower being destroyed and all the elementals playing a part in this, but we also find this in other spots around the map, like near the Forge Fortress and the Alona Fractal. But I just absolutely love how these look, and I wish we get to see this used again elsewhere in the game. Coming in at number 4 is another one of the fractals we can find in the map, and it is Droknar's Light. This fractal represents what would happen if the Stone Summon Dwarves were on the winning side of the Civil War versus the Deldrimor, where in our reality, the Deldrimor Dwarves ended up winning the war, and they enacted the right of the Great Dwarf in order to combat the Destroyers. In this reality, Jalis Ironhammer is dead. The Dwarves have not turned to stone, and they have been pushed back to Droknar's Forge, which is where their last stand against the Stone Summon is going to be. And as someone who loves the story of the Dwarves and the original game stories, this was so cool to see. This entire location is pretty cool. I love snowy and mountainous environments, but I love dwarven architecture as well as mines. I don't know why, but I just love the vibes of minecarts, minecart tracks, ore everywhere, and other similar things you can find in mines. This is also the primary spot where the meta event in this map takes place, which is a decently cool meta. You got a ton of cool lore characters that you can talk to in this version of reality, and the various other events around this region are cool. This is my favorite region in Skywatch Archipelago, and it's just one of my favorite parts about this map. And the number 3 spot is something that is technically in Droknar's Light, but it is these two dwarves right here. They are sitting on the far eastern edge of Droknar's Light and are overlooking Kaining, the version that the Jade Mechs took control of. Where I believe it is when you run up to them for the first time, they have some special dialogue, and then you can chat with them about various topics, where these are dwarves who are from their own place and time, around about 250 years prior to modern day Tyria, and then you got Kaining here, which is from modern day Tyria. And all the different people across this map are living in this world together, where they can see all the fractals, and there's the potential for them to be interacting with other people. Where these dwarves see Kaining, and they talk about it in the context to their own lives and experiences. And chatting with them, you can talk about airships, which they have learned about, but won't exist in their timeline for hundreds of years. And of course, these dwarves are pretty confident in their building prowess, and they like their own structures much more than these tall buildings. And I just found these two dwarves super cool, and all the dialogue surrounding them to be super cool. It really reinforces one of the primary ideas of this map, where everything is kind of taken out from time and in a way mashed together with everything else, and these two dwarves really drive home that point. Coming in at number 2 is a bit of a weird one, but it is the water levels in this map. With the introduction of the Secrets of the Obscure expansion, we see a fundamental aspect about how maps in Guild Wars 2 are completely changed. Where to give some background, every single map in Guild Wars 2 has a water level, and basically every pool of water that you can swim in, be it lakes or oceans or deep rivers, are at that level. We can find water elsewhere in maps, like Waterfalls, but those are basically only decoration, where they serve no mechanical purpose as far as swimming, fishing, underwater combat, and other things that interact with water goes. And this kind of led to design constraints with maps. But now, I don't know all the technical stuff behind this, but ArenaNet have developed a way to add usable water to more levels than just the water level in maps. Returning to the new map, we can go back to the Primal Maguma and we see Cloudview Lake and all the different pools of water around here. But then we can go down in elevation and go to Jade Mech Habitation Zone 3, where we can find more water but at a different elevation. And this is kind of just super cool, because this is the first time we have seen this in Guild Wars 2, and this opens up a ton of possibilities for map development moving forward in the future. I'll share a link to a discussion down in the description if you want to read more about this. And now for the number 1 spot, my favorite thing across the entirety of the Skywatch Archipelago, and it's the lore books. This expansion has a lot of stuff that you can read in it. There are so many different books and other interactable objects that would give you some cool information about different pieces of lore and story, and when I say there's a lot, there really is a lot. I really recommend that you take some time to wander around this map and read some of the things you can read. There's a ton of stuff at the Beacon of the Ages you can read, but you can find stuff across the fractals as well that gives you a ton more background to what is going on in the specific fractal you find it in. I want to share 2 books that I found particularly cool and give you a taste of what I am talking about. The first book is in Farason Village, in the version of Alona where Balthazar won, and the book reads, "It's been many months now since the commander fled Alona in the wake of Balthazar's victory. The people here have not forgotten their promise as they left, that they would return and undo the damage before it was too late. But as Balthazar's power has solidified and the absence of the commander has lengthened, it has become clear to most of us that no salvation is coming. We are on our own. No one knows what became of them after leaving. Perhaps they succumbed to the injuries Balthazar inflicted on them, or maybe they truly are preparing to return. But perhaps it is as so many fear. We have been abandoned by yet another savior, left to die in our desert and be consigned to history, a forgotten people buried in sand. And the second one I want to share is located in the Beacon of the Ages, where you can read research about the various fractals, and one of the documents has research on a fractal that the Wizard's Court and Astral Ward are researching, but we can't explore, the Krita fractal. And it reads, the situation in the Krita fractal has developed in an unanticipated direction. While the emergence of Thackeray as the nation's leader after the deaths of the royal family was unsurprising, the deterioration of Crichton society was unexpected. His attempts to prevent more incidents have led to increasingly draconian measures, scaling back centuries of freedom in the country. Conclusion, this experiment has reinforced the unpredictability of the nation's materia and the corruptible nature of even the noblest people involved. We recommend additional study, but we advise against any Astral Ward involvement in Terran politics for the foreseeable future. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. Skywatch Archipelago is a super cool map, but it is still pretty new to the game, and I have not explored everything. I threw some honorable mentions in the description, but if you have discovered anything cool in this map that is not on this list and you want to share it down in the description, please do so. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.